Hey everybody, it's Ron again, and today we are going to cover timed events. So the first thing you want to do is create a new one, and then I would recommend immediately renaming it. Well-named anything is going to make it easier to keep track of, so my immediate suggestion. But notice that this is an event group, and so you can choose to begin the event group immediately, and then you can specify a delay for the whole group to start. But what I usually do is, especially if I'm making an initialize method like this, is tell the whole thing to begin immediately, but then I'll put any kind of delay on the individual events inside the actual event group. So for here, as a simple example, I'm going to say whenever the mission initializes, I'm going to want to wait 10 seconds, and then I'm going to play the mission intro audio to the user. So we'll say intro message, and then we'll have to tell it that we want to add a new action. And don't worry, I'll explain this window in a minute. But for now, we're just going to pick system, and then we're going to choose a radio message. And then for that, we're just going to choose one of my example audios from the Schlebovian conflict I'm making, just as the mission 1 briefing as an example. And so now, 10 seconds after this event group would begin, because this action has a 10-second delay on it, it would play this message. And so it's an easy way to just trigger events when you want to start things up. So there's a lot of options here. Make sure you manage the event mechanism that you're using fairly well, or it'll get complicated fast. And you can delete individual actions out of the event, because you can have multiple in the actual event itself, or you can have a new event then that has multiple actions, or you can make it a 1-to-1 ratio. It's really up to you. And you can choose to delete individual ones of these, or you can delete the whole group. So it's pretty easy to manage from the interface. It's just understanding what is all in that additional event browser pop-up window that we should go over now. All right, so the other thing that I also want to go over with is that big crazy window we just looked at. So whenever you're messing with events and you're doing everything, there's a lot of options here underneath the event action browser. So we'll kind of just break it down quickly. So if you got any units here, let me just add a unit so you can actually see what's here, and I will just make me, just put it at the waypoint. So go back to the events, and so if I'm in my new action under unit, you can see me now, and then there's a bunch of stuff that we can tell the player to do, or I guess not a bunch, but a couple of different things, versus if we were to have a normal friendly aircraft that wasn't necessarily us, and we were to go back to events and we were to look at, we wanted to do something with the units, we can get quite a bit more options on what we can tell these guys to do. So depends on what you're picking over here. Is there might be some sub options that pop up. Easy example being this picker for what I wanted, the audio briefing file I want to use here. So some things may have additional sub options to fill or parameters to fill, and some things won't. So it's just, you got to look at what you're clicking on. And versus if I was to make a group, so let me do that with these guys really quick, and I'll just put them both in alpha. And so now if I was to try to trigger some kind of event, I could pick the entire group alpha, and then likewise I could tell every plane in there what to do. Attacking targets, you'll have to play with the specifics of each one of these. If anybody in the community has a question on how any of these work, I'd be more than happy to make a tutorial vid on any of this stuff, but I'm not going to go over each and every single one of these. It's just too much. But the objective, so here you can tell it to trigger an objective, but we haven't covered objectives yet, but it's an easy way to say, okay, after this timed event runs, trigger this objective. It's just an easy way to connect things together for making win or lose conditions occur. I don't know if a timed event would be the best way for that, but you can have a timed event trigger other timed events or stop them. You can have timed events trigger triggered events because they are events themselves, as well as event sequences, which I don't have any event triggers or event sequences right now, so there's nothing here. System, you got a few options. Top one's going to play more of the over the radio of the aircraft type messages, so your radio message. Same thing, but as priority, you can choose to stop stuff. The conditional stuff we'll get into in a separate video because it's a pretty powerful little thing inside here. But you can choose to fire a specific conditional action that you've made somewhere. Choose to stop or play background music. Set paths or waypoints to GPS locations, light flares, do other stuff like that. And if you're designing a mission, you might find this helpful for timing reasons because I don't always know how long something's going to take. So when I first design a mission and I'm curious how long it's going to take for an enemy to arrive somewhere, I will make a display option event trigger something or at some point, and then pop up a text to myself to say, oh, hey, an enemy triggered this action. How long has it been? So I know that I can set a timer to do something, or I can pretty much do anything else. But this way, it allows me to get some kind of debugging information back out of the mission I'm designing. So these are very, very helpful if you're kind of messing with stuff. I don't really mess with them that much except for to kind of debug my missions. But it's really up to you guys on whether you want to have the user interacting with Windows. I think there is an option to specify how long it does stay. And then here, back to the global values collection that you can have, where you can choose to manage the value in some way, as well as, again, I don't have any static objects here, so if I had anything from down here in the map, such as the custom buildings or the oil rig or any of that other kind of stuff, I could choose to do something with those here. Just like in the units box, there would just be some options over here to the right on what you could do, what actions you could take on said static object. And then likewise, there's not a whole lot to do for the base here, but you can set which team owns the base. I'm going to imagine potentially so that enemies can take over bases or something during gameplay. So that would be kind of a cool dynamic action to make. So there is a lot there. I kind of briefly covered it, but in later videos I'll kind of show you more advanced ways of using events and managing events. But for now, that was kind of the basic event overview and kind of the event browser, action browser overview. So we'll see you guys in the next video for triggered events.